And here we are with another episode of Chronicles on the Fly. And I'm Simon.
I'm Mel. How are we?
Very well, very well. And I think we're going to very aptly name the title of this episode, Made in America.
Well, for the past 8 days in America have been a bit crazy, haven't they?
Nut job city over there. Country.
Mm.
But before we get on to that, Mel, today is Saturday the 6th of June. And it's the anniversary of D-Day, an event that you like, even though you still haven't watched the Saving Private Ryan, have you?
I've actually watched the opening 20 minutes. Amazing. Yeah, got to hand it to the who directed that? Was it Ron Howard? No,
Spielberg.
Oh, Spielberg. Right. Fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. I will watch the rest of it one day, but those first landing at Normandy was absolutely amazing.
I think a lot of people say that it's pretty close to the mark in terms of realism.
Even the sound of the machine gun of an MG-42 was phenomenal. That's exactly how they sound. They used to call it Hitler's saw, I think they used to call it, because it used to mow everyone down.
I wonder what I suppose, early 20-somethings men who did those landings back then, 76 years ago, would be thinking about the climate, the political and social climate happening not just in America but around the world at the moment, but mostly in America, which I think this podcast is probably going to be talking mostly about this episode.
Yeah, it's crazy. That'll be probably on what we fought. We stormed those beaches for what?
For what? What's everything come to?
What's everything come to? Free speech and craziness and
the types of things that are, at the moment getting everybody's attention is, this Black Lives Matter movement and police brutality and linking that to racism.
What happened to George Floyd, the man?
Let's start with that, yeah.
Start with that. I think it was absolutely abhorrent. It's disgusting. And that police officer should be dealt with the full force of the law. I mean, as a human, the guy can't breathe. And it wasn't even if he was off the record, if he was a pedophile, I would say don't put the knee. You should do a bit more than that. In saying that, but
he did have a track record. I mean, this is not an excuse, of course, but he actually does or did have a track record of crime. Yeah. Some pretty bad too.
But that's not that issue. He got arrested for was a $20 bill. There's no one deserves to be handled like that. And the police in America are very heavy-handed. We all know that. A bit forceful when they probably shouldn't have.
In terms of that cop being convicted, I've got my concerns about that, to be honest. And the reason why is because I think his charges were upgraded to second-degree murder, right? Which I think the onus is going to be on the prosecution to prove that he intended to kill him, according to some of the commentary that I've heard, right? Now, are they going to be able to prove that he actually intended to kill him? But I'm just wondering, are they rolling the dice with that charge?
They should be pretty confident. They're going to do that because it's going to be, if there's a problem now with what's going on, imagine if he gets back with a not guilty. Could you imagine? It'd be worse than LA.
The reason why I'm saying this is because the autopsy report, supposed to be independent by the coroner, of course, but the autopsy report stated that he didn't die from asphyxiation. He died because of a heart attack. Yes. And he had drugs in his system. But I'm just saying that's definitely going to be used as a defense, right? And at the end of the day, all they need is reasonable doubt about intention.
Correct.
Right? Which, I don't know, does that leave manslaughter still on the table? I don't know how it works over there.
I don't know how the legal system works, so I can't comment. Obviously, putting your knee on a guy's neck, it's ridiculous. We agree.
The cop has killed the guy. Right, you can't tell me that he died because of a heart attack, right? But what was the cause of the heart attack?
Yeah, I'm sure lack of oxygen is going to do that. But the other thing that I think is going to be interesting, like you said, is they have to be 100%. The prosecution is critical that they get the facts right, and if they do charge him, they get it done right, because at the end of the day, he's going to be serving 20 years at least.
What about the other 3 cops? Right, so one was kind of on his back and one was probably on his legs.
The difference is, and I was listening to the police here, I was talking about a particular case, was on the radio, and they made a really good point here. They go, even if it was the commissioner with his knee on, if that happened here in our state, the commissioner, it's your duty as a police officer to make sure that he does it ethically and responsibly. And if you're a rookie, whatever. Now, I don't think that they attack. I think they should have handled it a lot better, personally. They should have stopped. They should have said, mate, you can't breathe. It wasn't going anywhere. You know what I mean? He was handcuffed. He was on his back, face down. He's not moving. Don't have to put your knee on his neck. Put it on his back if you have to keep him.
A couple of things about that, right? So obviously the people, the citizens who were filming and standing by on the footpath watching, yelling, he can't breathe, get your neck off, you've done enough, kind of thing. That cop, Chauvin, was it Derek Chauvin? Okay. I reckon his attitude was probably like, if I relent, then I'm just playing devil's advocate about the way he would have been thinking through that process. What is if he relented or took the pressure off Floyd's neck, it may have looked like he was being weak, right? Yeah. At the end of the day, a ridiculous thought process, but I'm just playing devil's advocate about what he may have been thinking. I don't know. And also, I read or heard something about 2 of those cops were rookies, and one of them, and I'm assuming that this is the one that was standing in front of the people filming, one of them, it was his 4th day on the job. Okay. Now, fair enough, over here in Australia, let's say a rookie, even 4th day on the job, could probably say, boss, chief, whatever, I think you've gone too far, relax. But I just got a feeling that over there, it's more of a hierarchical system, and you're more of a, you're more of a junior, seen as a junior, and you wouldn't open your mouth.
Another point I'd like to Mr. Chauvin, whatever his name is there, Derek Chauvin, had 12 complaints already against him for excessive force brutality. I mean, there's a pretty pathetic reflection on the MPD, the Minneapolis Police Department, to still have a person on the beat and he's had 12 complaints for excessive force. Like, come on. There's smoke, there's fire. It's like, come on. Obviously, he shouldn't have been a police officer. He should have been stood down. He should never have got. How a person gets 12 is beyond me. He's still a police officer.
And no doubt the prosecution against him is going to use his if it's allowable anyway, they'll use his record of complaints against him to show that, he's got a propensity.
There's a trend of racist or police brutality. But they have a massive culture issue in America with the police with being excessive. They're taught to shoot first. I mean, I understand that due to the amount of guns they got in their country.
I think that a large proportion of police, they just are on edge when it comes to these situations. They shit themselves. And it's like, I'm just assuming that their whole intention is to get out of the incident alive themselves, and to hell with the consequences on the other side.
True, it could be. The other issue I have, I think, compared to, we are a different country, of course, but we have, as in tiers of police or enforcement, we have our state police and we have the federal police. Okay? Now, you have branches off that. You obviously have Border Force, which does the borders. But in generally speaking, when it comes to crimes, you have the federal police, the state police, and then you might have a joint task force for corruption and crime or National Crime Authority. But then, no here nor there. When you go to America, and in my experience when I was in Vegas, I was talking to a police officer just out of curiosity. He was walking the beat. I said, "Excuse me, I'm a little bit confused. Who's the police here?" Like, he goes, "What do you mean? Well, we're the police." I said, "Yes, you're the police. You're the Clark County Police. But then you have the Las Vegas Sheriff. Then you have the Las Vegas Highway Patrol. You have the the Las Vegas Police Department. I'm like, who's the hire? Who's the hire?
Who's got jurisdiction in what?
There's too many police departments or law enforcement agencies in each country or in each county. Each county is different again. So you look at California as a state. You have the San Francisco Police Department. You have the Santa Monica Police Department, which is next to the Beverly Hills Police Department, which is next to the Los Angeles Police Department. You think about it. Now you're talking like that's like having the Sterling Police with the Dawson Park Police, to having Perth Police, to having Victoria Park Police. Well, they're an independent department, but that's a state issue. This is what I think. And now they're all taught different things. They're all taught different ways to. It's really confusing. You know? That's what I felt. I was confused. Like, so who's in charge? What's the sheriff do then? What's the sheriff do? What's the highway patrol? I think he does like, you know, and he pulls cars over. But is he still a police officer? Isn't he a police officer? So if something goes wrong, is he not supposed to do anything? You know, if he sees a crime there, someone doing holding up a shop, is he not supposed to attend, or just stay on the highway and pull people over? I'm confused. What's the sheriff do? Just take crims?
I don't know.
So it's a bit unique there. And the system, then you have all those levels of enforcement. Then you have the State Bureau of Investigation, which is obviously like supposedly like the state police. Then you have the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Then you have the DEA. Then you have the ATF, and then you have the all these different arms. The DSS is so many different arms of law enforcement. It's crazy. That's one thing I've never understood. That's one thing, me personally, it's like, couldn't you just simplify it, be a bit easier? Because then you probably find you'd have a bit more training, or you might have a more level pegged police presence. Like, I don't know, maybe.
So anyway, what's happened after this? Obviously, is all these. Obviously there are legitimate protesters protesting police brutality and specifically brutality against black people. I don't know. It's up in the air about whether there's an actual targeting of black people, okay? Because the stats don't
100% support that.
They don't support that. There's a lot of left-leaning media outlets in the United States, and one in particular is the Washington Post, which is really pushing this narrative that I suppose black people are targeted, almost hunted down by police in America. I'll read exactly from their article where they update statistics, okay? So they say that black Americans are killed at a much higher rate, right? And that word rate is important. Black Americans are killed at a much higher rate than white Americans. Although half of the people shot and killed by police are white, black Americans are shot at a disproportionate rate. They account for less than 13% of the US population, but are killed by police at more than twice the rate of white Americans. So what they're saying basically is black Americans make up 13%, white Americans make up around 76%, okay? But the amount of police killings are more or less the same amount in terms of numbers, okay? So the rate, obviously, because there's only 13% as opposed to 76%, the rate is higher. Fine. But what is not taken into account there is the number of incidents, okay, or the number of encounters, okay? So that 13% of black people have to be having a much higher proportion of incidents or encounters with police based on their population, right? Higher incidents, higher crime rates. That kind of gets left out in the wash, right? No one says that. But that's obvious to me just by knowing, enough about how statistics work, right? If you've got 13% versus 76%, but they've got the same number of killings, let's say, obviously to get the same number of killings, you've got to have far more incidents or encounters. And therein lies a massive problem, okay? Why are black people in America having so many more encounters with police than other racial populations? That is a big question, which does not get discussed in the media.
No, it doesn't get discussed in the media.
At least not on the CNNs, the MSNBCs, Washington Post, New York Times, the left-leaning, right? Maybe they discuss that on, the right-leaning like Fox News. I don't really watch enough to know. I mean, I'm not the only one saying this, okay? So you've got even black conservative commentators like Candace Owens. I showed you that video of her talk to her phone, you could say, rant or whatever it is, but she mentioned a lot of these statistics, okay, which just do not get talked about.
America, I'm tired of us being considered, not smart, uneducated. Oh, I actually saw comments on a random website writing about the article. Oh, now wait for black people to start rioting because black people got to be black people. I'm reading these comments and realizing that these people are writing in the comfort of anonymity. And they're writing that their perception of black Americans are people that have very little facts and riot and are angry and have no idea about what's actually going on, or basically understanding that the whole concept of racialized police brutality is a myth, okay? All you have to do is sit down and do basic mathematics to discover that the entire narrative that we have been sold is a lie, okay? It's a lie. There is no racially targeted police brutality against Black Americans. In fact, if you are a white American and you commit a violent crime, you have a 25% higher chance of suffering a police fatality than Black people. Now, you might come across some people that are really bad at math, and they'll say, Candace, I know that only 9 Black people were killed last year unarmed by police officers, and 19 white people were killed unarmed by police officers. But Black Americans are only 13% of the population, and white Americans are 60% of the population. So that's why. No, that's not how math works. You don't look at the numbers according to how many Black people there are in America and how many white people there are in America, because not all white people commit crimes and not all Black people commit crimes. The numbers you look at is how many police encounters Black people had versus how many police encounters white Americans had. And when you look at those numbers, you will realize that the only thing we're doing disproportionately in this country is committing crimes. Take 2018, for example, right? 13% of the population, Black Americans, accounted for 40% of all of the murders and something like 50% of all violent offenses in the country. That's not normal. We are having more encounters with police, and despite having more encounters with police, white Americans are the ones that are being killed at a higher rate.
So she's basically saying, I mean, she's Black, a Black woman in America. You can't call her racist. She's married to a white British guy. A Black woman in America, you're a minority of a minority. The things that she's said, she's being discredited by her own culture, her own race, and by left-wing media. But I think that she's got a fair... Other things I've disagreed with when I've heard her speak sometimes. But on this, I think she makes really valid points. And I'll go through some of the things that she's been saying. Okay, so there's a 25% higher chance as a violent white criminal of dying at the hands of a police officer than a Black person has. Okay, these are borne out by the statistics. In 2019, there were 9 Black men killed and 19 white men killed by police. I think unarmed, right? Unarmed people we're talking about. So 9 Black versus 19 white. All right. So all this about, police hunting down Black people. Yeah. Well, you've got more than twice the amount of people that were white.
Yeah, what they're saying, I think what they're trying to do, what they're trying to say is that, okay, they only make up 30% of the population.
All right. Again, we're going back to the proportion of the overall population. But that's a bullshit argument, Mel. It's a bullshit argument to talk about the percentage of population, because you need to talk about the percentage of crimes being committed. That's the most important thing.
I think it goes back to a lot of cultural issues prior to that. That's what I think, you know what I mean? I think there's other systemic issues in there. I mean, I think they have a higher rate of single motherhood.
This is a big thing. This is right. Okay. So if you want to go to the argument about why is that 13% committing such a high proportion of crime and getting involved with cops in police encounters at such a disproportionately high rate. Why is that? Okay. So then you got to talk about cultural issues. Okay. Cultural issues, things about, all right, there's socioeconomic issues. Okay. There's more poverty among the black community than among the white community. Fair enough. Not 100% their fault. Okay.
And I do believe that they do, like, I think they'll probably suffer a bit more as a person for white skin. If they went for a job interview, medically stigma.
There's a sort of ingrained racism. It's kind of a innate,
it's
a passive racism that people just don't know that they've even got, or that. That's what I think. I think I see that. I get that.
Yes, they would say, okay, look, so job interview is a prime example. You know what I mean? If you get two identical resumes, right, you go, okay, it doesn't matter. But then if you put a face to it, what would happen? If one was a man of colour, one was a man of white, or one was a woman of colour, one was a woman of white.
But that's fine to say anecdotally, but stats have to back that up, all right? And they may do, right? We haven't even searched for that, or I don't know if there is any stats to back that up. There might be, but, logic says that would probably be the case. So, yeah, I totally agree that, but, we don't have proof of it. Going back to socio-economic issues, right? There's a larger propensity for black people in black communities to be poor, right? And they might get, because at the end of the day, education is, the golden ticket out of poverty, okay? The world over. We know that. However, they might get free education up to the end of high school, right? But it's college. I suppose college in America is the equivalent of our university, right? So college, university. They don't get free university. But it seems to me that college over there costs a shitload more than university costs for us. They leave their colleges and they've got almost a lifelong debt, college debt. So therefore, when you're coming from that low socioeconomic background, to be able to afford to take on that kind of debt at a college level, you are at a disadvantage. So there's the ingrained systemic disadvantage when it comes at an education level, right? And like I said, that's the key to turning this situation around. I mean, there's such a domino effect, it seems. We started off this talking about, levels of crime rates. How do you solve that? Education, but poverty prevents people from getting that education from a certain level or age, you could say. How do you solve that? Then you've got people like Bernie Sanders, who was running on free education, free healthcare. It's not that. We've just been talking about it. It doesn't sound, in theory at least, it doesn't sound that nut job, does it?
No, in theory, in theory, it's brilliant. But the problem you got over there, as opposed to other countries, the rate that they charge for the education. So the institute, the university, you're talking $200,000-300,000 for a course. That's big. It's ridiculous. And plus over there, the other problem is you got all these universities. And so here it's a little bit different. Over there, you got millions of different courses of just rubbish. So who does theology? You're not going to get a job. That's another issue. So these are some of the issues that they have faced with their education system over there. I'm not saying ours is perfect. It's far from it. Because I still believe, I'm a bit left-leaning when it comes to education. I've always believed in education should be free. Two things should be free: for education and medical. I have no problem with that.
Because it's got a societal benefit. Yeah, totally see that. But at the end of the day, how do you rein that back in or turn that around completely? Because all these institutions are private institutions, I would imagine, right? So there you go. It's all about profit. How do you change that around?
It is a tough one.
What a fucked up situation. And all right, another thing that you mentioned was the family situations, right? When you've got communities where, lack of a father figure is a massive thing, single motherhood, right? And you just think about it. Single mother raising 2-3 kids, right? The father's just, I don't know, he was a deadbeat and he's run out on them, whatever. What does that mother do? She's trying to, 2-3 jobs at the moment. Fucking no one's got a job. You know what I mean? So then we go to, all right, this happens. Protests and especially riots started. Okay. Everyone's just frustrated. Everyone's been cooped up for months.
Yeah, COVID-19. Yeah, that's quite ironic. 2 weeks ago, it was like stay at home, protect everyone.
It's been completely forgotten. And I think in a few weeks' time, we'll see what the consequences of that is. But you know what I mean? Everyone's just using this as an excuse. I think that to a large extent, the rioting they do not give a shit about what happened to George Floyd. That's been lost completely.
The rioting and the desecration actually hurts their cause more than helps.
And hurts their own people, hurts their own communities.
That's what the biggest problem is. Like, come on, guys. They burnt down a housing shelter.
Which was still being built. Luckily, wasn't people living in there. Yeah, but that's how many hundreds of people and how many families would have been housed in that place of their own people, of their own community. That is absolutely sickening, but they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. You've got to have, decent black folk standing at the front of their businesses with guns and signs on the windows saying black owned. They've got to protect their businesses from their own kind. That's fucked up.
Yeah, that's wrong. I totally agree with protest to your heart's content. I'm all for it. They actually lost my support when they specifically desecrated. There's a Vietnam War memorial. I don't know if I showed the photos, but I've got to find the photos. And they absolutely destroyed it, tagged it. There was all these crosses, so tombs, crosses for the soldiers, all destroyed, kicked them over. I'm like, come on. They're soldiers. They fought for your country. They fought for you to express your rights as freedom. They don't deserve to be their grave kicked on and stomped on and their name tagged on. No, that's respect.
And the saddest or the most annoying part of all that is that these people are going to get away with it. They're not going to be caught. They're not going to be prosecuted for it.
Well, just like that guy was defending his shop he passed away now. That guy with the green shirt.
He had a sword.
He had a sword in
right.
his shop. And
yeah. All right. He shouldn't have been doing that. Maybe with a gun he would have had a better chance.
Oh.
He would maybe would have been left alone. Yeah. But with a sword, he's got to get close enough. You know what I mean? He was trounced and he passed away, has he? That's sickening. And the worst thing I've seen is probably the retired black cop. David Dawn was his name. He came to defend a friend's shop and someone's just run past him and shot him and killed him. And he laid there dying, bleeding out on the footpath. How does this help their cause? How does this help their cause? If they want anything changed, that's the thing, but they don't want anything changed, right? Those people don't care about anything changed. They're just opportunists. It's their opportunity to play out a real life Grand Theft Auto game. That's all. That's all it is.
Yeah. So, but do you got the other issue? They talk about leadership and all that. I don't think Donald Trump's handled this very well. I think he's been pretty honest. Honestly, I think he's done a pretty average job with this.
I think 4 years ago he should have reined in his tweeting as soon as he became president. There's just no need for all the bullshit that he tweets out.
If he actually didn't tweet, he kept his mouth shut on tweet, he probably wouldn't have been that bad.
This is, you know what? I reckon that as a president, because each individual state has to deal with this writing thing, right? There's only so much a president can do, and really, it's probably exactly, but it's probably not that much that a president can do, because the president doesn't control states, right? Now, he waited 6 days before making a public address. Maybe on day 2 was the time. Day 1, you're still kind of, seeing what the hell's going on. Get in front of the bloody cameras, doing a national address, and all he had to do was read it out, right? He waited 6 days. But then you had Joe Biden talk, and he actually performed pretty well. He just read off a teleprompter pretty much, but but people are going to be weighing up the difference between the two of them leading up to November. And Biden already has performed better in this crisis.
Well, he's actually got the official nomination.
He's got, okay, there you go.
But the problem with Joe Biden, then he goes and make a comment like, instead of police officers shooting the body, shoot him in the leg.
It's a stupid comment because they're not all crack shot SAS marksmen, right? But it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter because that's going to go over the head of his Democrat base. They don't care about a comment like that. You and me and people, people who don't like him are going to pick up on something like that.
I just think this was a time that the Democratic Party could have actually put up someone who's a bit different. And then the three people that they're going to pick from, Bloomberg, Biden, and Bernie, were three old white men.
Well, I've told you the ideal person was Tulsi Gabbard, but they wouldn't give her. She didn't have enough marketing behind her, so no one probably no one still knows her name.
And she was an ex-vet, so she gets to make points for me for that, just being an ex-vet.
I think it's very far. I think that this would be very far-fetched that this would happen, but what would be ideal is if somehow Biden names her as his running mate, so for vice president, Biden wins, but after a short time, his health, well, I think it's pretty clear his health is declining anyway, but he gets to a point where he has to hand over and the vice president becomes the president. And she becomes president. That would be brilliant.
For the Democrats, it would, yeah.
Yeah, and I'd be fine, obviously, we're more conservative leaning people, but I'd be fine with the Democrats being in charge over there if it meant that Tulsi was a president. She's what, 38, 39? She's a star.
Yeah, she should be one for the future. Then what the Democrats are going to do is, I think, it's their party to do their life. They really need to clean out, but
they're just party machine people, across the board.
They need to clean out. They need to get rid of Nancy's too old, Chuck Schumer's too old, Hillary's got to go.
Well, that's the other scare. If he was to name Hillary Clinton as his VP running mate,
I think that'd be a nail in his coffin.
Up until a couple of weeks ago, Trump was pretty much a shoo-in, but now it's he's performed terribly here, and
up until COVID, he really wasn't too bad. Because the numbers are actually pretty good. His statistical numbers are pretty good, as in employment and growth and all that were pretty good.
How some of the things that we've seen from this? Well, firstly, let's Antifa, right? Oh. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, Antifa this, Antifa's, being provocateurs." Yeah, to a certain extent, they have, but don't tell me that it's all Antifa. This rioting, no chance that it's all Antifa.
I think they're a bunch of wimps. Personally, they wouldn't be able to lift the brick.
There's a lot of it is just, opportunism, because this is what happens. This is what they do. We've seen it time and time again. Ferguson, all the way back to, I was going to say LA 1992. But even before, you could say, there was the Newark riots in New Jersey, 68, I think. I don't know, 60-something. I think there was when Martin Luther King died, there was riots, weren't there? So America's got a history of this. So don't tell me, suddenly it's all Antifa's fault. They're a disgraceful organisation, and I think it's right that they should be called domestic terrorists. It's about time that they were declared as domestic terrorists.
But a lot of people would be looking at, the fact that they specifically targeted the shops, like the Rolex shop. The Rolex shop got cleaned out. Louis Vuitton shop got cleaned out. The Nike shop got cleaned out. Apple Store.
This is a pretty bleak subject we're talking about, but some of the footage has been absolutely hilarious too. And I'm talking about things like people have just left the Apple Store with a new iMac in the box, and then they get attacked so that someone can steal what they've looted off them. And to me, that's hilarious.
So it was funny, right? When the people looting and the guys come out with guns, and they're going, "Quick, call the police, call 911." I'm like,
you're supposed to be protesting.
You're protesting against the police. And you're trying to loot, then the guy comes out and you want to...
And the two guys that were in the apartment,
they're
filming the rioters down below on the street. Bang, two rocks come flying through. We're on your side. Screaming out at the street, "What are you doing? We're on your side." Plastic. Just soy boy bullshit. That's what it is.
But going back to the initial issue, there is a systematic problem with police I think the police are very brutal in their tactics in there, and I strongly believe that they need some proper training.
I think they are so on edge. I mean, put yourself in their situation, right? Oh, you wouldn't want to be to start with. However, they are not helping themselves.
No, they don't help themselves with what they're doing. I mean, you don't go if you're going to you have right gear and all that, but you don't go push media. That's because they're obviously recording it.
Isn't it obvious who's media?
It's not. Come on, you got a lady with a microphone there with a big Channel 7 or whatever it was, and they go push us. Like, come on. He's got a massive camera. He's got a commercial camera. He's not recording on an iPhone.
This is a new one when it comes to riots in America. I haven't seen the cops go after media before. Mm. Like, I remember watching a fair bit of the Ferguson riots. I think that was like 2014.
Yeah,
was it? Yeah, I think it was 2014. I watched a fair bit on YouTube and stuff. I don't remember any media getting caught in it. But also, maybe media is just getting too close as well. Not excusing it, but maybe this time around, media is a bit closer than they normally have been.
This is because I was watching the thing on Channel 9. I was watching Channel 9, and when they were looting the night shop in Santa Monica.
They're right outside the window.
No, they're going, okay, we were just seeing the people looting, and then not a smoke bomb, the firework went off, and she started screaming. She goes, oh, no, it's just a firework. Well, let's just go take a closer look. I'm like, you're just getting right in there.
They may as well mic up and put a GoPro on the looters before they smash the window. Here, set you up, off you go. And then we'll get the footage off you after. They may as well do that. Give them 100 and there you go.
They'll get looted. They go, thanks to the GoPro.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. But some of the coverage has been absolutely comical, all right? And I'm talking specifically about CNN. I've been switching between CNN. I've given up in the last couple of days. But when it first started and first kicked off, I was switching between CNN and Fox News quite a bit, right? And the coverage I was probably watching more so CNN and the shows because the coverage was absolutely comical. And we're talking about the reporters. One reporter was standing in front of a burning building, literally standing in front of a burning building. And he said, the riot, not the rioting, they're calling it protesters, even when they're filming rioting, right? It hasn't been too bad. It's been, it's not unruly. He said it's not unruly. He's literally standing in front of a burning building as he said that. Another bloke, right? There was like a procession of cars and, people on top of cars. They weren't doing much bad, right? At that point anyway, right? So this CNN reporter standing in the middle of the road as the cars are going past him, and he's going, he's saying, "Oh, it's like a merry caravan, and they're being quite peaceful, and it's completely peaceful." And as he said that, a bottle comes flying at his head, and he had to duck, and he had to duck, and he goes, "Oh, sometimes things are thrown, but that's not uncommon." Oh my God, man! They're just apologists for people causing shit and rioting.
Speaking of apologists, what are your thoughts on the Hollywood leftist elitists? Really, really.
Well, you've got people like Justin Timberlake. Who else? Steve Carell, Seth Rogen. Putting up money for this bail fund for they call it protesters, but anyone getting arrested. That includes people rioting, right? That's disgraceful, mate. These people living their Hollywood elite, tucked away lifestyle, and behind gated communities with probably security guards at the front. They're fine. They're happy for all these rioters to do their bidding and throw stones in on their behalf.
Yeah, downtown LA, there's no problem. Just do it down there.
Don't worry about smashing the front window of the single mother's shop. Trying to provide and put her 3 kids through school. Don't worry about that. We'll bail. We'll get people to donate to a GoFundMe and bail you out. Get fucked. Those people are the scum of the earth, those Hollywood pricks. They make my blood boil.
Well, even Ice Cube was a little bit disappointed.
He's just a dog.
Now, I actually didn't mind Ice Cube, but then I was like, hang on a minute. And someone brought it up, right?
They're encouraging it.
He's encouraging it, right? And he put a photo of, a police officer during the day in KK at night.
Yeah.
And then he goes, I was like,
until someone smashes his window and he wants to call the cops.
No. And then someone goes, I find it quite ironic because you always play a police officer in your movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Every single movie he's a copper, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, so it's right to take the money playing a police officer. You know, he was a captain in. I was a bit disappointed with Last Cube with that because I actually thought he was, should have been a bit above that. Yeah, because boy who experienced racism should be focusing on racism. But I suppose he wants to keep his image.
They're promoting this racism narrative, and
I'll take my hat off to Kanye West, bro.
Exactly right. Everyone takes the piss out of him, but at the end of the day, who's put their money where their mouth is? Him. He's helped the kids who are no longer have parents. How good is that?
Yeah, and so they pay the fund for the George Floyd's daughter. That's not. At least he's doing something for George Floyd. Whether George Floyd was whatever happened, it doesn't matter. What he's doing is saying for George Floyd. Now, I take my hat off to that. Even Michael Jordan, he's doing a fund for $100 million or something for racism. He didn't specifically say it was.
I read to promote equality or something, but what does that mean? Where does it go? That's just vague. But good on him.
At least he's trying. Yeah, but he hasn't gone specifically down the. I'm doing it for bail out people that have committed crimes. They're righted. So at least he's trying to probably address the problem.
Just the left-wing media and these Hollywood celebrities encouraging the rioting makes me sick. What kind of world are we living in now?
Then you go, what's the one? Was it going bald for Black Lives Matter? What was that?
Oh, going bald for Black Lives Matter. So they're shaving their head off.
They're shaving their heads. So they're making themselves like.
I just there's a disconnect for me. I don't quite get it. What's it all about? What does it mean? How are you helping? I know it does, but in their mind, how do they think it's helping? I don't quite get that at all. It's just nonsense. Everyone's an opportunist when this stuff happens. Everyone's just being an opportunist. Another thing is the social media, putting these black squares as their profile pictures or just posting black squares, corporations, all this virtue signaling bullshit. What are you achieving? Corporations, people who have never, ever involved themselves in this type of stuff before, all of a sudden, just sheep, all right? No thinking. It's just, all right, I'll post a black square and there we go. I've done my duty. Wash my hands now. Who are you? What are you doing? Yeah. That type of stuff on social media just grinds my balls so bad. I can't stand it. One thing I saw last night on Twitter was in America, an epidemiologist, right, posting that it's more important to go out and protest than to social distance and stay isolated during COVID-19, right? So she's a health professional, an epidemiologist who should know about all this virus stuff, but encouraging people to put their ideology before their health and well-being, not just of themselves, but of the community.
She's thinking about her job, so she gets more people. That's what she's probably thinking. She's being selfish, huh? That's what she's doing.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so more people. It's just amazing. That's absolutely amazing how COVID-19 has just fallen off the. What's up? Who? COVID. What do you mean? Social distancing. What do you mean we're going to social distance?
In the last week, we've seen the absolute best and the absolute worst of humanity, and I'll tell you what. You obviously know what the worst is. We've been talking about it, but the absolute best is. Did you see that what's it called? The SpaceX launch, right? That was brilliant. Okay. And I was watching on YouTube.
I think you've seen the best and the worst of America, maybe. Because not so much humanity, because the American space, that's the potential of their country, and then the epitome of their country, and then you got the bottom of the two extremes of that country.
Yeah, totally. So I was watching a live YouTube feed of them on the space station doing a moonwalk. What do they call it? Not a moonwalk. Spacewalk, of course. Right? I was doing a spacewalk and they were repairing something on the outside of it. Okay. And so behind the astronaut, you see the Earth down below, right? The curve of Earth. and there was a lot of cloud cover. Okay, so you couldn't see land masses, but you could see that the Earth was covered with a lot of cloud at that point. And I was just thinking to myself, this guy is up there above those clouds, and then below him there is so much chaos and bullshit going on. This guy is so lucky to be up there and away from it without all this bullshit going on, and how insignificant we are, all right, on this, little blue marble rocketing through space. We are just so insignificant. Now, have you noticed that there's been like pellets of bricks?
Yes, I saw that.
Side street on the streets in a number of cities around the country, in like built up areas where there's no construction going on. There's just like bang, bricks. So who's putting that there? For what reason? Clearly, that's about they want them to use it to smash windows, to riot. Now, who does it benefit? Who does it benefit? Is the government doing this? Who does it benefit? It's bloody strange.
Weird.
And everyone, police, not police, people and celebrities calling for defunding of police and abolition of policing in general completely. Yeah. We've seen what will go on if that was the case. That's just a joke.
Because I'm sure MS-13, LA Kings, the Latin Mafia, and who else is there? The Bloods and the Crips are going to really be, they'll be going, yeah. Because that's going to solve that problem, isn't it? Down in South Central.
And there was also a clip of the sheriff of Polk County in Florida was doing a press conference, and he warned rioters and looters not to come to Polk County because here everybody loves their guns. And I encourage them that if you enter their home, that they blow you back out with their guns.
You know what's funny about this whole rioting? 2 million people in America have officially become gun owners for the first time.
2 million new people have bought guns.
Yes.
Well, if I was living there, I'd be one of them. All right, so talking about that, let's talk about guns here, Mel, because what if this happened here one day? You'd want a gun.
Yeah, but it ain't going to happen. We're not allowed to have guns here.
Okay, this is what I was getting at. So what are the laws about owning a gun here in Australia?
Here, it's a privilege to own a firearm. It's not a right. It's a privilege bestowed upon you by the police. That's the first thing. So you can't say, I want a gun because I want to protect myself, because that is not a reasonable use of a firearm.
Even if it's to protect yourself in your own home?
No, absolutely not.
But people have shot intruders.
And have been charged.
Yeah, but generally I don't recall anyone actually going to jail because of it.
Well, because they'd look pretty silly if they went to jail.
So technically speaking, you are not allowed to have a firearm in your home for the purpose of defending yourself?
No, absolutely not. Not in any form in Australia. Only America has that.
Firearm ownership in Australia is basically around farming, hunting.
And for sporting purposes, yeah. Recreational or sporting purposes. Or for a farmer, that's obviously for work.
So take me, for example. Don't know shit about guns. Mm-hmm. How would I get a gun?
Well, first thing I'd probably say, most people just go to a gun club, have a feel for it, and to get an experience to shoot a firearm. Or they go with someone who has a farm or property, shoot on to practice safe usage. And then if you join a club, they make you do X amount of shoots just so they know you are, because you can't just go and you hide the gun. There's always someone there. In here, some of the ranges that for people, the firearm is actually connected on a rod, so you can't take it out, turn it, this and that, so the gun just stays on a rod. So you can't do anything with it, just pull the trigger. Once you do that, so you decide. Normally, if you say you go to a gun shop, you apply
for a license.
You got to apply for a firearms license, a gun license.
Can I just walk into a gun shop right now and apply, having never handled a gun before even?
No, well, you got to do a test. It's recommended that you technically you can, right? But the thing is, you don't get the gun straight away, the license straight away. There's a lot of checks that go on getting a firearm, right? Now, first, obviously, is one, you got to do a test. So you got to do a questionnaire, you got to do a test. Once you've done that, you select the firearm. Thank you very much. I want this particular firearm, and then you apply it to the police. There is a 28-day cooling off period.
Okay, so at this point, you haven't shelled out any money to purchase the gun yet.
Well, technically, this is an issue because technically you're supposed to. Because if you go to a shop, they're not going to give you a gun with it. You're not going to purchase something. You're not going to a shop without. That's a problem with West Australia. Not different than every other state. We're talking West Australia only.
So you can hand over money for a gun even though you don't have the license.
You can't touch it.
It would stay there. All right, got it.
You put a deposit down. Normally, most people put a deposit. Wait 28 days, and then it can take up to another 28 days before you get the firearm. But before you get the license issued to you, you have to have a safe installed.
How do you prove that?
Okay, there's two. One proof purchase. Two, there's sometimes the police can come out and inspect. So a lot of them come out and inspect, and what happens is you got to do it to. So it'll be to two separate anchoring points using a minimum of, I think it was 80 mil or 180, 8 mil heads or 10 mil heads.
But a safe shop would know those regulations.
Or a gun shop or whatever, with 40 mil bolts, 40 mil washers minimum, anchored to two fixed points, or a wall, two on the wall and two on the other wall, as long as it's two separate, okay, anchored points and it's driven in properly. And then what happens is the police can come and inspect. If they got time, they will come and inspect. If not, you have a safe. What you do is called a safe declaration. So it's a statutory declaration by a court or law saying that you have complied with the standards. Sent off to the police, and then once you do that, you get the photos of the safe installed and certified by Justice of the Peace. Police will issue you with a firearms license with the caliber of the firearm and the gun model, the serial number, and then you can pick it up.
But I initially have to have a legitimate reason for owning it. It can't just be because I want to have a gun in the house.
You got to have a legitimate reason. The legitimate reason, one, is to recreational hunt and shoot. And to recreational hunt and shoot, you must provide a property letter of where you'll be using. Now, I personally have my own property, so I'm fine. My property is quite large, so it's fine. But other people obviously go to farmers, recommend a minimum size of about 2,000 acres, which is a fairly... or access to a property.
Access to a friend.
To a friend. It's very...
To sign a letter stating that you're allowed to shoot on that.
Got it. Yeah.
These are the property.
Yeah. So the shooting on the property can be for what purposes?
Recreational hunting and shoot. So you can do target shooting or hunting. But me personally, when I go...
Hunting pests like
foxes. Foxes, rabbits, wild pigs. Your main ones, feral cats, massive problem, feral dogs. They're the biggest ones. If you go further up north, you have an issue with brumbies and camels and water buffalo. So that's up right up north. There's some buffalo that cause a bit of problems. And you get the odd stray cow that's gone from stock. So it's escaped through. And wild, there's a lot of goats here too, believe it or not, in West Australia. Wild goats. Yeah. Wild pigs, wild goats. The biggest problem with pests at the moment, depends where you are, but if you're in the Midwest region, currently wild dogs. Wild dogs cause a huge amount of damage to livestock and native fauna and flora. Absolutely destroy it. The other one is feral cats. Feral cats, what they do is you're talking 5th, 6th, 7th generation cat. So you're not talking a little Tinkerbell cat at home, tinsel, we're talking a decent sized cat because it's actually been like in the wild, been in feral, so it's just eating. That's all it does. To the point where I went to a farm I would go to, and she actually had a feral cat give birth on her property. So she had the little kittens. So she took the kitten, so the kitten never became real feral because it was taken from birth. She domesticated it. But in saying that, the cat, you got to see the size of it. This thing's a monster. But oh my God, the size of it's made. No, not a dog, but it's a pretty big cat. I was like, wow, it's a big. It's not your normal cat, I can tell you that much. But anyway, so they do massive, massive damage. If anyone wants to go have a look on YouTube, they type in feral cats. There's actual the CSIRO, one of these agencies have done, or feral scan or something, they've done a video. They trapped the cat and they put a camera on it to see what it does, to try and work out the damage. I think it was doing up to 11 kills a night.
Of native animals.
Birds, reptiles. And once you've done that, so the safe, your gun has to be in safe at all times. Your ammunition has to be in a separate container to
Still within the safe.
You can put it in a safe, but it's got a lockable compartment.
A separate lockable compartment.
Separate lockable compartment.
Can't be. There can't be a anything in the barrel in the chamber.
No. You never have anything in the chamber. The chamber's always empty. What I also do is, I recommend is sometimes you take the bolt out of the firearm, put the bolt, depends on your gun, of course, in a different spot, or you can buy, they got like the trigger locks. What happens is you put like a padlock that goes in between the gun, the bolts and the trigger, so you can't pull.
Okay, so let's say that I've gone through all that. What type of gun can you legally own?
Here, you can have a lever action or a straight pull, which is a blowback sort of system, which is it's like you pull the lever, pull each time. You can have a pump action rifle, but not a pump action shotgun.
Are they considered semi-automatic?
No, none of them are semi-automatic. The only people allowed to have a semi-automatic in the state of Western Australia are primary producers for pest control, and they can only have a Category C, because that's what it's classified as, Category C firearm, which is a semi-automatic shotgun, or up to 5 shots only, or a rimfire firearm, which is either a 22 or a 22 Magnum, which is a very small caliber, up to 10 rounds semi-auto. Generally, people do that because if they've got a cull, because there's a lot of pest birds, sometimes they're cull pest birds, you need rapid fire. Here in Australia, you're not allowed to have a Category D, which is the semi-automatic centerfire, which is you're talking like your AR sort of styles and your SKS.
Common in America when it comes to school shootings, things like that, right?
No, school shootings is statistically more handguns. The handguns are a higher proportion of mass crime, criminal offences than assault rifles.
Because they're easier to conceal.
Conceal and carry, and it's easier to carry magazines. There's a lot of other things. Now, when it comes to a handgun, you're not allowed to have a handgun in Western Australia for farming or hunting purposes, completely illegal. The only person allowed to have a handgun is they join a gun club and go to a gun club and shoot a minimum of 6 times a year in competition, or it's called ISPC, or there's all different types of competition. That's when you're allowed to have a handgun, but you're only allowed to have that handgun for that specific discipline, that up to a certain caliber, with a maximum of 10 shots. So here they're very, very strict.
It's very strict and controlled, isn't it? A lot of this came in after Port Arthur, right?
Port Arthur, because what happens is, a couple of steps back also, as a firearms owner, which most of them don't know, is you are already classified as a criminal, even though you're not a criminal, because your details are automatically sent to Interpol. So my details, license, address, phone number, everything, all at Interpol. Know that I have a firearm.
So any cop in the world can find out that
I'm a registered firearm. Apparently, that's what I've been told. That apparently, as a firearms owner in Western Australia, all my details are submitted to Interpol.
So any firearms owner in Australia.
I don't know about Australia, but I know specifically Western Australia.
What about in America?
I don't know. They don't have rules like we do.
It's just the Wild West over there when it comes to guns, isn't it?
Yeah, completely different. Each state's different in America. Don't forget.
Right.
It's a state, like here, it's state-driven. We here are completely different than the other states.
Okay. Are we stricter than other states?
I wouldn't say we're stricter. We're stricter on certain things, but not stricter on other things. Actually, no, we pretty much are stricter on pretty much all things, actually. What am I talking about? 99% of things we are way stricter. We have got a much more complex system than everyone because we believe we do things right. I personally think we do things wrong. Okay, but that's just my opinion. The issue is over there, here in West Australia, you license the firearm, whereas over in East, you license the shooter. And what I mean by that is, it's like here, you have a car license, but your car is registered to you, and only you can drive that car. Whereas over East, your shooter's license, even though you got a gun, I can use it, which is fine, which is no big deal because it's still registered to me. But if you're out there, it's you can use it. Where here, technically, not supposed to. It's a bit complex here. We do things. So unfortunately, we have very, 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 very tough gun laws, and it did change a lot when it came in 1996 with the NFA, the National Firearms Agreement, which was, I think Johnny Howard did not handle it quite well properly. Actually, I blame pretty much the Supporters Association and stuff like that, the way that they handled it do a very good job. It's supposed to be unified gun laws Australia-wide. They're completely not unified. They're completely different. No matter which state you go to, they're all different. They're not unified laws. West Australia, as an example, if you're coming from Melbourne or Sydney and you're a licensed firearm shooter in Melbourne or Sydney for a competition to shoot clays, you have to apply to get your permit to bring a gun into Western Australia.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, hang on a minute, but I'm a licensed. No, it's classified as an illegal firearm as soon as it crosses the border. I'm not. It's not an illegal firearm. It's a licensed firearm because it's a state issue. Whereas I, as a West Australian, can fly to Melbourne. I don't have to worry about it because the other states recognise West Australians license for up to a valid of 3.
Oh, right. That makes sense.
And things you're supposed to you're supposed to be on the same register. You're supposed to, so bang, so neighbouring anyway. But it's not. It's a joke. It's actually a joke. It's actually a joke. This is the problem. And so it's just paperwork and time and consuming. It's just silly, Like one rule in WA. So even if you want to do business as a firearm dealer, I know it's a dirty word because everyone's like, we don't need guns, but it does cause a bit of an issue if you want to do business. Yeah, and it's quite funny how the gun culture has changed in Australia. Because there's a video on YouTube, you should watch it. It's like it's from the 70s, and it shows a man walking down the street with a rifle, but it was actually wrapped up half a rifle because he only had the stock. So he's walking down like he's got a rifle, but no one blinked an eyelid. It was just normal. Today, there'd be the riot squad, there'd be the police, the TRG, this and that.
Isn't it amazing some of the clips that you've seen? Like I said, like black business owners standing in front of their businesses in, I don't know, Minneapolis or wherever with these really high-powered guns. I'm sure that I don't know the first thing about guns, but I'm pretty sure that those guns are not the type of guns that would be legal here, right?
No, they don't want to be legal here, but this is another issue. This is another prime example, right, of the confusion. And I blame the media and I blame it's this thing called the AR-15, which is an assault rifle. Well, that's a fallacy, number one, because it's not. AR does not stand for assault rifle. It stands for Armalite. It was the company that made it back in. All right, so it just happened to fit the narrative, right? Now, because the gun looks scary, doesn't necessarily mean that it's scary. Okay, because I can have a gun, a 22. If anyone knows what firearm calibers are, it's a very small, low-powered, and I can put a chassis on it to make it look like an AR, but it's not an AR. It's not an AR-15. It's a 22. So it looks scary, but it doesn't mean it is scary. You know what I mean? Everyone's going. That's what the argument with the police have here. That you don't need to look scary-looking guns.
I mean, at the end of the day, these laws are made by politicians who don't know what they're.
No, I think I don't know what they're talking about. Now in America, there's another thing. It's called "Change My Mind." I don't know if you've seen it.
Stephen Crowder.
Yes, Stephen Crowder.
Yes, yeah, I've seen him.
And he did one, right, where he bought to a university campus or whatever it was, some campus or something, all these firearms and put them on a desk, right? And he goes, okay. Then he's going, change my mind. What should be legal? What should be illegal? Now everyone looked at that's illegal, okay? Yet he had now an AR is a 223 caliber, so it's not a big caliber, it's not a small caliber, it's a mid-range caliber. And he had an SKS, which is 7.62, so a caliber a lot bigger, but it looked like a timber rifle that could still hold 20 or 30 rounds. They were going, oh, no, this one's fine, but this one here, because that's a hunting rifle, but this one, no, it's military, so we can't have this one. I go, okay, no worries. Not knowing that the gun that looked like a wood one could take 30 rounds, no problem, semi-automatic at a bigger caliber. It would do more damage than the AR at a further distance.
Very interesting subject, actually. Now, in terms of self-defense, right? Let's just say, and it has happened, but let's just say that, I've gone through that. I've got a gun license and someone busts into my house and I've got to protect my family and I shoot the guy back out the door, like the Polk County Sheriff said. I blow him back out the door. All right. I'm going to be charged.
100%.
Now, all right, you're not a cop, but what's the likelihood that let's say he had a gun himself. He was holding a gun and he was running at you.
You can use same or equal force, right? But your issue is going to be your firearm is supposed to be locked up in a gun safe, depending on the gun, with the bolt out.
So am I going to be in trouble for not storing it correctly?
You get in trouble for that.
That's not that bad. But you won't get charged for murder?
Like, did he fire at you? You're his same equal force.
Oh, he has to fire first?
Well, he's going to be threatened to fire. But
surely you could just say, well, he pointed the gun and I got to him first.
Your issue is going to be, how did you get that firearm so fast out of the safe that is locked and with the ammunition to load? Because you're talking a split second.
Right.
So to do that, your gun's going to be right next to you, not in a safe, loaded.
So let's say you see him on your security cameras and you can see that he's got a gun on his hip. Right.
First, ring the police.
Okay. What if you said, like, your wife's laying next to you in bed and you said to her, ring the police, but you get the gun ready just in case. And then he does come in and you blow him away. There's got to be a way around it. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be a set of circumstances that line up where you're not going to be charged.
So unfortunately, no, this is Western Australia. This is Australia. When it comes to that firearm, it's a dirty word. And no matter what you say, you will be wrong.
I think also, but you can only think of these things to a certain extent. Your first priority is going to be protecting yourself and your family.
100%, yeah.
And your property, right? And, the consequences are going to be the consequences. But in the moment, in the heat of that moment, you're not going to be thinking, I better not get the gun out of the safe because if I actually do have to use it, I'm the one going to be in trouble. Meanwhile, your family's
100%.
Family's dead.
So that's the issue you have in Australia when it comes.
I think surely some logic's got to come into.
No, when it comes to this, honestly, the gun laws since Port Arthur here,
you should be allowed. You should have the right to use your legally owned and licensed gun to protect your family and home. And I'm not saying chase them down the driveway and down the street if they run. But if they come into your house in a threatening way, or is there anything but a threatening way? You should be legally allowed to use lethal force with your legally owned gun. It's plain and simple.
Unfortunately, we're not, because they turn around and they throw gun ownership in Western Australia or Australia is a privilege. It's not a right. It's as simple as that. It's a privilege. Doesn't matter in your own home. It's a privilege. It's not a right. It's not a right. This is the issue, and this is a situation where people say, "Well, we're glad we don't have the gun crimes and stuff like that." We do. They do in America, which is true. We don't, but I think there's a lot more other issues they've got over there to add that, and plus you've got 325 million people, 350 million people.
Yeah, which we've been discussing, I suppose. It's just sick watching this stuff on TV. Like in the year 2020, humans can still go at each other like this.
Well, what I think is 2020 is a year that we definitely want to forget.
So far, and we're not even halfway through it.
It's definitely going to be a year we're going to forget. What we look on, our country's just got massive debt even more because of COVID. Tourism's gone. We've been locked up. We can't go anywhere. Can't do anything. The US is rioting.
All right, so on that note, should we wrap it?
Yeah. So, but in saying that, we'll definitely have to say what happened to George Floyd was a tragedy, and I hope they fix it up in America, because no, right or wrong, no one deserves a knee in the neck.
No one deserves a knee in the neck, and no one deserves a brick through their shop window and all the contents taken and burnt. For those who have stayed till the end, remember to like us and follow us on Facebook at Chronicles on the Fly Podcast, on Instagram at Chronicles on the Fly, and also on Twitter at Chronicles OTF. Adios.
Underneath the superficial self, which pays attention to this and that, there is another self, more really us than I. And if you become aware of that unknown self, the more you become aware of it, the more you realize that it is inseparably connected with everything else that there is. That You are a function of this total galaxy, bounded by the Milky Way, and that furthermore, this galaxy is a function of all other galaxies. And that vast thing that you see far off, far off, far off with telescopes, and you look and look and look, one day you're going to wake up and say, why, that's me. And in knowing that, you see that you never die. That you are the eternal thing that comes and goes, that appears now as John Jones, now as Mary Smith, now as Betty Brown, so it goes forever and ever and ever. The experience you are having, which you call ordinary everyday consciousness, pretending you're not it, that experience is exactly the same thing as it. There's no difference at all. See, the source of all light is in the eye. If there were no eyes in this world, the sun would not be light. You evoke light out of the universe. In the same way, you, by virtue of having a soft skin, evoke hardness out of wood. Wood is only hard in relation to a soft skin. It's your eardrum that evokes noise out of the air. You, by being this organism, call into being the whole universe of light and color and hardness and heaviness and everything. You see? Every one of us is an aperture through which the whole cosmos looks out. You see, it's as if you had a light covered with a black ball, and in this ball were pinholes, and each pinhole is an aperture through which the light comes out. So in that way, every one of us is actually a pinhole through which the fundamental light, that is the existence itself, looks out. Only the game we're playing is not to know this. Therefore, that what you call the external world is as much you as your own body. Your skin doesn't separate you from the world, it's a bridge through which the external world flows into you, and you flow into it. What you are basically, deep, deep down, far, far in, is simply the fabric and structure of existence itself. And when you find that out, you laugh yourself silly.